Okay, folks, this is Book Talk with Corbin. I'm your host, and you probably already recognize the faces. The absolutely wonderful, brilliant Star Parker, president of Cure, and she also is doing a weekly TV series, TV program, and as you know, she puts out this fantastic newsletter. If you are not getting that newsletter, you're wrong. You need to get a hold of that newsletter. And of late, man, the articles on it have really been powerful to the point to where
Thank you.
it's motivated me to try to start doing different things, additional things here in Louisville, Kentucky. And today we're going to talk to Sister Star Parker about the latest book. Sis, is this a book that you've put out or your organization's put out?
The organization, and it is a dream come true after years and years of internal struggle within myself to say, Lord, what is the difference you want me to make on behalf of you or for you? After rescuing me from a life of criminal activity and drug activity and sexual activity and welfare activity, and then to save me. And then for me to get birthed inside from him, an idea to say, well, then go get the rest of them that are also trapped in the kind of lies that you believe. When I established Cure as a Center for Urban Renewal and Education, we were a policy institute, but it's taken us a long way to get here. But what I've always wanted to do was counter the narrative that we've heard for the last 60 years that America doesn't work for Black people. So this book, The State of Black America, is Cure. It is the alternative answers when we ask questions, deep questions, intellectual and academic questions about race and where we should be, where we've been and where we should be. What are the pitfalls? What are the promises? But it's from Black conservatives. You're going to see Ann Rowe in here. You're going to see Dr. William Allen, who has actually edited the book. He's a senior fellow here at Cure. You're going to see Glenn Lowry in here and many, many others that you're familiar with, assessing what has broken down for us not to have continued the progress that we saw very rapidly after 4 million slaves were free, written into the Constitution to be free men under God in this great country.
You know, when you just said, I wish more people knew about Dr. William Allen. I've interviewed him a couple of times. I thought I knew something about the history of my folk. After about 10 minutes of speaking to him, I was like, man, I'm ignorant as all get out.
I had him on my show yesterday on Cure America because he is the author of this project. And so he's on a tour. So if you want to have him again, but you're absolutely right. I actually said out loud, I feel like a giddy schoolgirl every time I hear him with one sentence. You want to write it down and go and look at every single word of it because it's just so profound.
Yeah. And I have a quote here I want you, and by the way, this book is available. It's published by Encounter Books. Is that correct?
Yes, which is the intellectual digest house for those that are coming out of major, major policy institutes all around the world and including here in our country. So it is just humbling and exciting at the same time that we're so honored to be a part of the Encounter family now.
And so so we can go to Encounter website? Are there other website? Can we go to your website and buy the book?
It'll refer you to Amazon, Encounter, and other places you get your book. It is a tome. It is definitely available through regular markets. So Cure is not available to it particularly. You can't buy it from us, but you can certainly find all information you need about it at curepolicy.org. Yes.
Now, I know the National Urban League every year, they put out, I think they put out something that's called the State of Black America. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have. That's why ours is called the State of Black America. Yeah, it's the other side. It's the other side of the story because there's for the last 50 years have said the same exact thing. America's broken. It'll never be fixed. We have to transform it. And here, every year they give us the reason that we should be so concerned. And this year they put out that the reason is voter suppression. Oh, really? We're seeing incredible numbers of Black people that are going to the polls. We're seeing it post all of the changes that needed to be made after COVID, change some of the rules of elections. So it's just a lie, and more lies. It's just big government they want, progressive big government. So we thought, you know what, let's assess this for real. Let's look at this. And so we had a wonderful donor, if you will, come to the table, Tom Klingenstein. He actually wrote the foreword about wokeness. And he came into and said, yes, let's get the first one out. And then we're already working on the second one that he's also helped fund. Where we just need help is in the marketing of the book. But the stories are there, the intel's there, the data's there to counter what the Urban League does every year.
And I noticed and this is really important to me. I have a very personal connection to this. My father used to be a director of Urban League program in Warren, Ohio. In fact, when he was appointed there, Jet Magazine did a story on it. Because at the
Wow.
time he was the
Wow.
youngest director of the Urban League at that time.
It's
And
probably back
so,
in the time when they weren't corrupted and a political engine of the left. Because,
exactly.
you mentioned Jet, Ebony, Black Enterprise, all of them came up during the same time that Black people were still saying, we can do this. We were excelling.
Yes.
We were resilient. We were
Yes.
really a part of the dream. We were grafted in the same way
Yes.
as individual Christians were grafted into a bigger God's plan that he had throughout history. But yeah, we got lost. And your dad probably was like, my goodness, what happened to the Urban League? Because many are asking what happened to the Urban League, because it used to be a really good organization.
Yeah, and the one thing I noticed is that, my father he really was the epitome of the American dream.
Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't talking a lot about government program or anything like that. He kept saying to me, boy, apply yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You can do this.
So were most parents. So were most Black parents at that time. No, we got lost. We took a detour off of what our ancestors wanted and desired and died for, enduring slavery, enduring Jim Crow. And we got lost. We bought the lie of the left. We bought the lie that our problems were somebody else's fault, that we can't make it because somebody else has more money than us. We bought lies of envy and covetousness, and then government has to solve these problems for us, and they have to redistribute wealth. We really bought into lies. And now 24 million Black dead babies later, a lot of people are saying we need to clean our act up. And so I am so happy that Cure is a part of that conversation. And now with this book, I think people are going to find language to put behind what they know in their heart we should be doing and we should be aspiring to.
Sis, let me just say this. We're talking to Star Parker right now, president of Cure. She's also the author of many, many great books. If you go to my website, booktalkwithcorbin.com, you will be able to see the other interviews I've done with this wonderful intellectual, and know where you can go, what books that she's written, and where you can go buy them. Before we leave, sis, we were briefly talking about a conference that Dr. Thomas Sowell did about 40 years ago, was it, out in California? Was this not a gathering of Black intellectuals, Black conservative intellectuals?
Yes.
And then
and not all Black conservative, not all Black, because Milton Friedman was actually there. And when Clarence Thomas went to that one, he was like a young intern. But yes, it was 40 years anniversary that this gathering that we just had a couple of months back, and this time in Texas, to see, have we progressed? They asked some of the same questions that were at the Fairmont Hotel 40 years ago when Dr. Sowell said, let's gather up some intellectual capital and try to address some of these concerns, because he saw early on that we're way off track. He himself was basically a communist, and then he saw the facts and said, we've got to pull our act together. So yes, the Old Parkland Conference was the revisit for that moment. Mm-hmm.
And what was the month and year? And you say this was held in Texas, right?
Oh, no, it's just a couple of months ago, about a month ago, when you saw the news where now Clarence Thomas was one of two that actually were at the 140 years ago that attended this one for the 3-day conference down there in Texas, in the Dallas area in Texas at the Old Parkland Conference. So you may have seen the news reports a couple of weeks back where they were trying to take out of context some of the things that he said about the court. He was asked a question about, the integrity of the court now that we've seen this leak about abortion. And he talked about, the distrust and how, you can't allow your court system to lose its integrity and the trust of the people to surround the fact that we have a Supreme Court. Rule of law matters. And of course, the left, they look for any and every reason to try to destroy that man's integrity, but they will never catch up with him. And he had us laughing the whole 3 days because he's just a brilliant mind, but he's also a fun person. But yeah, that's it. So no, it wasn't a year ago. It's just the 40th anniversary. It was supposed to have been a little while ago, but we got stormed out. So about a month ago, we had the meeting. Mm-hmm.
Right. And I hope that more people study about those two conferences, because all too often, as a former Marxist, I know that we would be very selective in what we would sort of teach and say about Black folk.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Let me interject here, because they will be able to find that information, because it was a compilation of different thinkers from different think tanks. AEI, the American Enterprise Institute, was one of the sponsors. The Hoover Institute, where Dr. Soul has put himself to give us so much data, so many books. And then also the Manhattan Institute out of New York. These are brilliant minds that came together with some other intellects around the country, policy thinkers like myself, media. A lot of the media guys were in the room so that we can get that information out of them. Books were distributed. I came back ordering 100 copies of a book called The Poor Part of Town. And so I'm just cracking it open. I'm taking it over this holiday weekend to read that book. And I ordered other copies so that our clergy will be able to get a copy of it, because this is the kind of thought that is going into much that's coming out of AEI, Hoover, and Manhattan Institute. So we were just bathing in information. I wasn't even one of the speakers. There was just so many more profound people there. Judge Janice Rogers Brown spoke to us, and many, many others, in addition to Clarence Thomas. It was just a great 3 days. And if you can find that on AEI, Manhattan Institute, or Hoover, it would be worth listening to some of the dynamics of the room.
You know, given people like yourself and Thomas Sowell and the late Walter Rodney, I mean, are you becoming more optimistic that more and more Black folk are going to be at least listening to, at least exposed to, the alternative? What I will often say, the other side, the right side, the conservative side. Are you more optimistic about that?
I'm very optimistic, because I think what has happened after 2 years of COVID is people spent time and attention alone with God and being able to see into what is really in the mainstream now. They're looking directly in the eye of the LGBTQ community and what they have in store for our society. They're looking right in the eye of BLM and Antifa, these activist progressive groups that hate the country, and they're having to make decisions about, is this a good idea themselves? I think that a lot of Christian African Americans have deeper questions that need answering, but I also think that they're asking those questions now because of what we've been through the last couple of years. So I'm very optimistic, but I'm a pause, because we don't know if they're ready then to vote their values. And I think that there's a little understanding with Black Christians of how important voting their values is, because public policy is how we determine what the public square allows. We didn't get here yesterday. What we're seeing, whether it's critical theory, whether it's LGBT, and all of these progressive ideas started in the policy world. It didn't, now perhaps some individual wanted to do it, but how it's pushed on everybody else is through public policy. Policy determines what our kids are taught in school. Policy determines what kind of work environment we're in. Policy determines what we can even say out loud. Right now, we're having discussions about policy changes because we have young men who are not attached to anything. They're loners and they get gun. And now we're having a gun discussion again. Should we overturn the Second Amendment, right to bear arms, in the middle of the chaos that's in our culture, simply because family life and faith life has broken down? So I'm hopeful, I'm optimistic, but I'm also concerned that many Blacks are just not ready to vote their Christ over their color. And they may go in there and pull a lever for a D. And the D is how we got here in the despair that we see in our society.
Vote Christ over our colors. That's an interesting comment. But that's kind of comments, kind of thinking you can expect from Star Parker. Sister, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to speak to us today.
You're welcome, and congratulations to you. And thank you so much for having me on.
Sure. And folks, please buy this book, The State of Black America. I don't care if you're on the left, you're on the right, it doesn't matter. If you are concerned about the upliftment of our people, if you're concerned about the progress and moving forward of the national Black community, United States of America, this is one of the books you have to get, read, and share. And thank God that we have someone like Star Parker who's behind getting this out, The State of Black America. Sis, hopefully we'll be able to do this again soon.
We will. Thanks so much. God bless you. Bye-bye.